slightly issues with him. Um, I guess that does include the culture. He transforms the culture, not in terms of oh this is our culture. No, he encourages their behavior to change. He encourages a behavior of gratitude rather than authority and duty. If he changes it, he changes it in a loving, willing fashion, not out of force, but because the people, patrons themselves, want to change, and that they're grateful to God for change, not a conditional change or anything of the like. But for some reason, I don't know. I guess I wanted to speak about racism, um, not just today's racism, but racism in the past and how it's been changed. So in my last video, I had this idea about when babies they change the hearts of racists, where it's like when babies reach out and they have no discrimination, they have no discriminatory behaviorisms, they just reach out, they just like, hey, you're a person, and they don't know you, you know that's up to the society themselves to just understand, hey, this is a child, and of course, it's someone of their kin, their blood, and someone who's outside their cultural and racial family, and they see like there's this baby, and this baby just reaching out, and the baby just loves them, and the baby just wants to be held and cared for, and I think that just has a great change on it because it's like there's love right there, like the baby is dependent on the person who is perceived as racist to be like, wow, this child cares about me, and so and it breaks for me. I've just seen that several times where like people who are once racist and they seek unconditional love, and it changes them because it's so foreign the concept of someone being unconditionally loving because they hear a lot of negative things about other races and just like a just far different narrative. So when they see that, it's like babies are just so precious. You just see them, and of course you have women with oxytocin, their bonding chemical, where it's just like I can't let this child go. It's like these little humans creatures are so precious, and so it's like when that baby something just wraps his small fingers, his frail hands around one of the dude's fingers, is like this creature cares. This being, this human, loves me, cares about me, and they're just dependent on him to survive. They don't care about if they're racist or not. They just see grandpops. They just see grandma. They just see mom, dad, people who will take care of me. And it's just like, wow, that's amazing. So, it's kind of hard because it's like, um, given that that's unconditional love. That's a type of love that is just simply looking out for the person. Looking is dependent on a person who loves a person who cares about it. That who cares in the affections of a person. And I think that changes them. They're just like when they grow up, they just see grandpa. They say, "Hey, how you doing, grandpa?" And they don't know his past about being racist, saying racial slurs, being mean, or anything like that. They just say, "Hey, Grandpa, how you doing? You get some candy for us or whatever." And it's strange, but it's almost like it's a second chance for them. And so, given that, it makes me wonder, with the people who who are racist, who have these ideas, and I get it. Some of them just want to preserve their race and their culture, and coming from that understanding, I understand. But I understand that from a minority perspective. Just historically, my culture has been trying to be has been an attempt of being dismantled, weakened, preyed upon. Sorry, and my God, it's just genuine. It's just genuine and ineffectual, having uh, poor abilities, and this isn't a conscious effort. It's just I guess it's just in retrospect to just how the majority acts. But I think that's a bout of insecurity because if people are doing whatever they're doing and they enjoying themselves, and I feel some type of way, even though it's not directly affecting me, then that's because if the majority is just helping out the majority, and they're over their cultural issues, cultural nonsense, and they're worried less about racial, um, they're worried about less about racial relevance, and also about art, art, um, more about the art aspect. No issue with it. Now, from what I read from the Killer Mike interview, probably gonna watch another one. Is the fact that they say he one of his things is that like he says that it might be good for them to after about the age of 13 to start intermingling with cultures, because before then they need to have a sense of personhood and identity within themselves, and I think that's great. Why? Because people of other cultures need to know who they are in terms of identity and culture, and appreciate themselves. Not just to say that they're humans, because we don't live in that kind of world. We don't live in a world where everybody's regarding themselves as human and everybody gets a fair shot, because everybody gets a fair prayer. Have that. So that's why a person needs to be very confident in themselves and their own identity, culturally, ethnically, and the like. Being a minority is going to be far harder than being a part of the majority, and not being affected, or not feeling like they're, by comparison, they're inferior. So I think societies where not only they're busy, but just in who they are, and not this pro-black, anti-everything else. And that's not even like a true statement in itself, because being pro-black isn't anti-white or anti-everything else. It's just having a love for themselves. And as I get it from the Bible standpoint, they're gonna have love for themselves, but that's a different kind of love. That's more so a selfish love, rather than a cultural pride, a cultural a dignity. Because even in the Bible, with Paul, he suggests that he also, I'm pretty sure it's Paul, and I want to say it was Romans 3. I want to say Romans 3, where he talks about like or is it Hebrews 10 or 11? It's one of those. It's something like that, where he basically says like, you guys shouldn't feel bad for being Jewish people. You guys have had the Torah. You have like he tells them their historical and cultural significance, like who they are. They shouldn't feel bad for being Jews despite Christianity emerging, despite Christ. He says like, you have a special place, and Jesus himself. Um, he tells us the significance of the Jewish people, because I guess in the interesting retrospect is that Jesus himself was still, even though he was still out to save Jewish people, but the Jewish people themselves thought that he was going to be a king. He was going to lead them out of oppression of their neighboring countries, neighboring affiliates who were over them, dominating over them. But I guess they missed the point, you know, um, because even though Jesus was there for them specifically, and that's the interesting part where Paul is known as the Gentiles apostle. He's not Frank solely for the Jewish people. He's for the Gentiles. While Peter is for they're important, and that's why in our Gentile society, that's why Paul's so important to us, because he teaches us about the significance of Christ. He doesn't tell us to abandon our own culture, but he does tell us, there as people who are born again in the belief of Christ, you have appreciations, responsibilities, duties, and these aren't burdensome, but these are things that if you are a new believer, you should latch on to wherever you're from. If you're not in the fold of the Jewish people, under the fold of the promise, you have a new place you can be. Um, Even with races, I think just like with a child, and Jesus does call us to be a child, and to me, I like to think it's because similarly, children, despite being selfish, children don't really have those propensities of being harmed. Well, not harmed. I'm sorry. They live very simple minded. I like to think that they live very simple minded. They're complex people. They're complex little individuals, but they're very simple. And yes, their trust can be easily destroyed. Uh, and that's why it's good to maintain trust. But I don't know. I gotta learn it from a psychology standpoint. And I gotta get a degree in psychology. But it makes me wonder. Like children are very quick to love people. I like to think, to the point where it's in their detriment because that person could be a stranger. That person can be an abuser. That person can be a sexual abuser. You don't want that. But kids are very trusting, very quick to love, very quick to forgive. Some of them, I like to think. Um, and they're very able to take a chance with somebody. And so with people like racists and stuff like that, I think people with a child mentality are not a negative in those negative aspects, but in a positive aspect where it's like they are a lot more free to be companion, free to speak their truth, because kids can be so it's like to back for that inner child and saying in that childlike experience and just to expand those positive aspects, bravery, that fearlessness, that love, that gentleness, that patience, and then the other things in the Bible. But it made me think. I guess overall it does make me think about how children have such an effect on the person who's just seems to be racist, and how children, you know, in their very mannerisms, in their very likeness of just being so simple, being so compassionate, being so vulnerable, being so innocent in a sense. Well, yeah, I guess we could say innocent, where they don't invoke any harm, they don't invoke any danger, any presence of danger, and it makes a person easily quickly give up, they lose their guard, because it's like the child has nothing, isn't presenting anything to fear. you know you say, oh, this kid doesn't look like he's attempting to do anything wrong. He's not trying to hurt anybody. He's trying to be there, exist, and be loved. And it's just, and apart from those other parts, the yelling, the crying, the whining, and all that stuff, it's just like you develop a bond with the child because you know, as far as I could tell, I'm not a parent, but I could just tell, just apart from those chemical bonds and stuff, this human being, and even when children, it's just they have certain characteristics that is just that are kind of prized, like especially when you get yourself established. People always want to go back to their inner child, the stuff that they're not super guarded about. They're just like, I want to be in a sense a child again. It reminds me of Big, where with Tom Hanks, I believe, where he's an adult but he's a child, and so he's not just trying to be stoic and boring. He's trying to show other people that you don't have to be so responsible, I suppose. And I guess I kind of hate to say it like that, but it's one of the appeals of Christians is that they come across as very naive, and it's just like being wise and being innocent, being above reproach. You have to be away above, not in a sense above it. And if people say you think you're better than me, again, that has nothing to do with them, you or them. It's just this is your desire to be holy, to be righteous, to not even have any acquaintance with evil. Whereas, not so much that you're sitting here projecting some sort of superiority, but more so you protecting yourself and being wise evil, because you should have no association with evil. But that doesn't mean the people who practice evil are the embodiment of that anger, but more so the evil itself is just something that you're not associated with, you have no knowledge of, or rather, you're just very foreign to it. So, and I like to think it's similar with a child. That's one of the reasons why they have such an effect is that they're like that and they continually like that into their culture. And that's why people like racists get so surprised. Not spiteful. They're none of that. They're just themselves. And they're like, man, this baby's precious. You know, cares about me. It's not thinking hard about these evils I've done. It just loves me. which is sad. But I mean, it's not sad of that. It's sad of abusers because they're. I couldn't recognize it. I just would assume that it's a selfish place that they're taking advantage of selfishly, solely in their selfish means to abuse a child. But I like to think if apart from that, if it wasn't that, it'd be just chill. It would be just these people with these leanings, these specific leanings, they are just positively affected by the child. Because the child ain't sitting here trying to hate. The child just looking at them and say, hey, you know, I have love for you and I care about you consistently. You know, whatever you've done is not none of my concern. Um, and it's not sweeping it under the rug. Like that's something they have to deal with. But it's just loving them, loving them and their personhood, because they understand the good things about you. It's not that they're ignorant; they're smart. Well, kids, I don't know because they don't know any better. But for us as Christians, we have to be smart, but we have to be innocent to evil. You know, apart from it, foreign to. Yeah, but I guess that's it. Just be innocent